Good morning, Field. How are you?
Well, you know what date today is in history, don't you? December 7th.
No, I don't.
It's Pearl Harbor Day. And it's
Oh,
also, uh, let me think, it was about 92. So that would be 8 plus 18, 26 years ago on Pearl Harbor Day. I took my last flight in an F-16, and my logic was that I've been in the military and flying for quite a while, and the Japanese had not reattacked America, and I thought I could go ahead and retire from the Air National Guard, where I had the pleasure of flying F-4s and F-16s. But anyway, wondering if you've had a chance to see the video that I did last month in Dallas, Texas, and I didn't have any agenda. I just used stream of consciousness, but I ended up accurately vilifying John McCain and his father, another John McCain, and his grandfather, another John McCain, for the three generational traitors that they were. Anyway, I don't know why you're calling, but go ahead and ask me what you may wish to ask me, or tell me what you may want to tell me.
well, I think I would. I think that was an amazing video, first of all, and I learned a lot from it. So thanks. What I really wanted to ask you is, we were talking a couple of months ago, and you mentioned a bird dog. Can you please explain what that means?
Well, that's funny you bring that up, because you're familiar with the stage name of 107, aren't you?
Yes, I am. I
Yeah.
love him. I love that he's just started coming on your show. I hope to hear much more of him. He's amazing.
Well, I agree. He is an amazing person, but he made a comment to me one day, and it was actually in response to a question I asked him, because I asked him, I said, one, out of all the alternative media sites, what caused you to want to appear on my radio show? Because, I'm honored. I was honored then, and I'm honored to this day to consider him a friend. But he said, I wanted to talk to you because I don't know if you even know what role you're playing. And I said, no, I'm just me. I don't play a role. I just do what, God tells me to do. But God lets me do it my way. But what are you referring to, Juan? And he said, well, as far as the government of the United States of America and the intelligence communities, you're acting as a bird dog. And I said, well, I'm going to ask you more pointedly to tell me what type of a bird dog I am, because I'm familiar with an observation attack aircraft used a lot during Vietnam. That was called an O-1 bird dog. And then, of course, those canine breeds, pointers and retrievers, and they're called bird dogs generically. I said, which of those two applications are you thinking of in my case? And he said, you're like the canine pointer or retriever, because in your odd way of communicating, both verbally and in writing, he says, you point out guilty people that have not been necessarily pointed out to the government intelligence agencies. And so when you do your spontaneous deliveries and you go on a rant about some bad guy, whether it's one of the John McCains or whether it's the president or your own sister, you're pointing out people that have been hiding their true nature from prosecution, and which could result in incarceration or, in an extreme case, execution. So he said, you're like a bird dog. You point out new targets, and then the military intelligence apparatus can go see if you're performing a good service or if you're full of baloney. And I said, well, I'm not full of baloney unless I've had a bologna sandwich, and I seldom eat bologna because I don't know how to spell it correctly. It looks like Bologna. But anyway, that was a brief conversation with Juan before one of his very earliest appearances on the radio show with me. And all of those appearances came after, in fact, it was just this year in August. August of 2018 was when I did my last show with David Hawkins because I really thought maybe I should move along to something a little more stimulating. But I've found that pointing out evildoers, even at the top of our government, I think it's very important work, and the workers are few and the needs are many. So that's the story about Bird Dog, according to 107. And maybe someday you may meet him or talk to him, and you can have him give you the same story, because he knows what happened just as well as I do, and neither one of us makes stuff up. So anything else we need to talk about?
No, I just wanted to add that. And I think it's amazing. And I think that's part of what the Q Project is about stimulating researchers and diggers and creating new bird dogs. What do you think?
Well, what's the name of that project?
The Q Project.
Yes, and I think the Q Project, do you know that in 1988 I had Q minus license plates on a car?
I do know that. It's all pretty amazing stuff. But your father, he flew nuclear weapons for the military, did he not?
Yes, he did. In fact, as long as you brought that up, and I'm not trying to paint my father as some superhero. He was just doing his job, just like in my 26 years in the military, I just did my job. I didn't always do it the way my commanders wished I had, but it's sort of like Frank Sinatra. I did it my way. But, I'm alive, and numerous of my peer pilots are dead. And, I've been very blessed. I'll leave it at that. But my father, an anecdote relating to my father that no one else can claim, is in World War II, he flew a B-24 bomber called Sweepy Time Gal, which was a play on words for Sleepy Time Gal, which, he was 20, well, let me think how old he was. He was 20 years old when he was shot down, and the reason he was shot down is my father, back then, on April 18th of 1944, he was on a 100-foot, he was 100 feet above the ocean, and he was targeting Japanese merchant vessels with a huge cannon on his specially modified B-24. And if anybody were to use a search engine and look up four-engine, that's Fourengine, four-engine fighter pilot, you or anyone can read that he was the only four-engine pilot in World War II to shoot down other four-engine aircraft, and he shot down two of them. But that's not what you're asking about. But I'm proud of my dad for that. He became a POW, and he survived. And he was in good company when he was at the Ofuna, O-F-U-N-A, death camp. They didn't call it a prison camp. I mean, this is pure evil. That was called the Ofuna death camp. But on to the Vietnam era, well, pre-Vietnam. In 1953, my father, and he would have been 30 years old at this point, my father led the first 4 nuclear bombers to be stationed in the United Kingdom, and he took them to a base right outside of London. It's just west and maybe a little bit well, it's on the southern end of London, but and the name escapes me right now. But if somebody were to search B47 reflex, REFLEX, and my father's name, Glenn McConnell, the fact that he took 4 nuclear-armed bombers into the United Kingdom when the United Kingdom at that time didn't have any nuclear bombers of their own. And the reason why that is significant in the history of war and peace is because when I was growing up as a teenager, actually I never grew up, as you're well aware, but I used to hear this stuff all the time. The Russians are coming. The Russians are coming. That's not historically accurate. I mean, we didn't need to be afraid of the Russians. They helped us in the Civil War, and they helped us on June 8th of 1967 when then President LBJ and the former Secretary of Defense, I think his name was McNamara, but they got together with the military leadership, or in this case, misleadership. They had some real bums in high places in the military on June 8th of 1967, and they intended to sink the USS Liberty, which was an intelligence gathering ship, the vessel, and this was on the 3rd day, I think, of the 6-day war, or whatever it was. Anybody interested in history would know this already, but what they don't know is the only reason that ship didn't get sunk was because the Russians responded to the Mayday calls. A Russian vessel came steaming over the horizon, aiming directly for where the USS Liberty had been attacked by Israeli fighters painted as if they were flown by Egypt. And that's a piece of history that a lot of people don't know. And its relationship to the McCain family is one of the, I think even the surviving crewmen from the USS Liberty, very few of them probably were aware that it was the Russians that saved them. But anyway, enough about that. My father, in World War II, was a 4-engine fighter pilot, which is something I'm proud of. He was happy about it. And then in 1953, he went over and established reflex, which means a short notice alert status where those airplanes were armed with nuclear weapons and they were cocked, 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 which means the crew could hop in and hit all 6 engine starters simultaneously, and they could be airborne quickly. And the advantage to that, it wasn't to defend the United Kingdom. If the Russians had left their northern Russia bomber bases and made a left turn as if to go to the United States, my father's 4 bombers could be overhead Russia, in 30 minutes. So that's a little bit of history. But my father was a really good servant of the government, meaning the military. But, I don't know to this day if he was aware that the government that he was serving was treasonous. But my dad died happy with his own service, not knowing who ultimately served. But I figured it out, and that's why I left the Marine Corps when I was just 27 years old, and I got into the air defense. But my feeling was defend it if it's legit. And, a lot of the stuff I am knowledgeable of can prove that for many years, starting in 1869, sometimes I say 1871 for 2 different reasons, but from that point, when Ulysses S. Grant was the last legitimately elected president, until sometime in 2015 when I communicated with General Dunford, who was the Commandant of the Marine Corps, and I communicated with a presidential candidate named Trump and another presidential candidate named Carson. And I gave them some truthful information. So, yes, in 2015, I did a pretty good sized project of bird dog work.
Yes.
Sorry for the run-on answer.
No, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I love when we have these conversations. So yeah, that brought a lot more questions. But just quickly, so today I find this very interesting too, because today, a man of your father's caliber that would fly a plane carrying nuclear devices would have to have something called a Q clearance.
Okay.
So I find that very, very interesting. So,
Well, who knows? Maybe I'm a second generation Q.
maybe you are.
Yeah, I'll find out at the end.
That's right. Anyways, so that's great. You've answered my question. So I'll let you go and
Okay.
have a really great day.
Okay, and happy not Saint, I'm thinking of St. Bernard Dog. Happy Pearl Harbor Day to you, even though you're from Ipswich.
I am. Okay, God bless.
Yeah, God bless you too, Paul.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye. So that was awesome.